So, ladies and gentlemen, our next session focuses on a core requirement for AI at scale: cyber resilient data foundations. Our speaker, Mr. Vasu Murthy, the Chief Product Officer at Cohesity, works at the intersection of data management, security, and AI deployment. He deals with the real operational challenge enterprise face when their data becomes both their greatest asset and their biggest vulnerability. Vasu is a proven product leader with over 25 years of experience building products at every scale: startup, day zero, growth, multi product scaling, and global public companies. Please join me in welcoming, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vasu Murthy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the organizers. Thanks for L&T Financials. In this session, we'll kind of change the gear a little bit. Lots of applications have been discussed. I want to take it back a little bit to developers and infrastructure. Can I have a show of hands? How many people are developers here? Okay, you have a fair number of them. And how many of you have dealt with data and infrastructure? Even more. So great. I'm at home, right? I'm at home. Thank you. So the topic of this is cyber resilience, right? If I go to where's the clickers are there? So if you look at where money is being spent, okay, this is from the latest Gartner report. They did a survey of where money is being spent and how much budgets are increasing. The top two topics: cybersecurity and AI, right? So those are the top two topics, and that's where the budget is increasing a lot. Like that's where every company is spending a lot. What if you could do a data infrastructure that can be common for that provides cyber resilience and also provides what you need for building AI applications? And that is the concept I want to talk to you today. And this is something that I've been working on for a while. My company Cohesity. Some people have known Veritas. Veritas is a part of Cohesity right now. And we've been working hard to help customers, and we found tremendous interest there. So something that I think you may find quite interesting. So to start with, what is cyber resilience? What is cyber resilience? Can anyone guess how many companies are getting attacked and actually breached in cyber every year? So in India, in 2022, there was a survey, and the answer was 74%. And many of you may already know, because cyber attacks are already happening. You might have had experience in your company. Billions and billions of attacks are happening all the time. But the key thing is, how can you recover from it? So if you have a business, you're getting attacked, attack succeeded, but you can restore, get up and running quickly in a matter of hours, then you're resilient. If you cannot, and if you're stuck in recovering for weeks, and probably the name comes out in the newspapers, then you're not cyber resilient, right? And so that is what cyber resilience is about. On the other hand, AI innovation is all about making sure you can develop AI applications cost effectively by accessing all data that you need for developing these applications. And these data needs to be clean, AI ready. And so the thesis I'm going to talk to about in the next 20 minutes is it is possible to build a single secure data platform that can power both of these applications, okay? So in order to go through that, I want to first talk about cyber resilience. And this is something maybe is not probably the main thing everybody's talking about, AI and agentic. This is really about how can companies bounce back from an attack that happens. And we'll talk about the basic requirements of a data architecture to get there. And then we'll figure out, hey, how can that be used also for delivering AI? So the fact of the matter, as I said, is there are billions of attempts happening, including bad actors, including nation states. It's a whole industry out there. There are people secretly having conferences like this, developing applications on how to hack, how to attack, how to break through. These are happening, and it's a big industry. And because the attempts are happening all the time, no matter what you do, it's going to get through someday. Some of the attempts will succeed. Some data cyber attacks will occur. And it turns out recovering from a cyber attack is usually much worse than anticipated. Like we can plan for it, When it actually happens, it usually takes longer because we haven't thought through all the possible ways your cyber attacks could happen. In my company, at any point of time, we are talking to about 20 customers that are recovering from a cyber attack. Any point of time, any day. New attacks are happening constantly. We are helping them recover, and then they're up and running back, back again. So you need to do a lot of careful preparation in order to be resilient to those attacks. And from all of this, we have learned these 5 steps. The 5 steps any company infrastructure must be prepared in order to really bounce back and get up and running quickly to be cyber resilient. So I'm going to go through these 5 steps and come up with an architecture, and let's see how it maps to the AI data problem. First is you've got to protect all data with global governance, which means that you need a digital twin of your data, because if your primary gets lost, you need to restore the data back. So you need to have a copy of all the data. And people call it backups. Ideally, it's a digital twin. And this cannot be just once. It has to be done constantly. It has to be done quickly. And it has to be across all locations and all applications. Recently, when AWS East got down, so many applications went down. Because it was a single point of failure, you've got to have a backup where you can go recover from it. So in order to do that, you need a data infrastructure. The data infrastructure has a copy of all your data, which is your digital twin, and also your past copies. So you should go back to yesterday. You can go back to the week before, yesterday or a month before in the worst case. And so that is required. So all your data is in there, in files, in NAS, in VMs, in databases. That's where all your critical data is. You also need a separate infrastructure to have a copy of the data. So that is step number 1. Step number 2 is to make sure that copy doesn't get deleted. What is the point if you make a copy of all the data and it gets deleted? Turns out the bad actors know this. They know that you keep a copy of the data. So in cyber attacks, what we learn, first thing the attackers do is to go in and delete your data. So you got to make sure the data cannot really be lost. What does it mean is that the data is immutable, it cannot be changed, it needs to be secured and locked so it cannot be deleted, and you keep multiple copies, not just in one location, multiple media, and all banks probably have some tape copy as well, which is kind of slow to recover, but you need to have those copies. So it's not just that you need to have a digital twin of your data, but you need to have it in a way that it cannot be lost, it cannot be deleted. So that's step number 2, you need to have that. Step number 3 is you need to constantly monitor and making sure you can detect data anomalies, early indications of threat. So this data is constantly, this could be attacked. If it's being modified, you need to detect that. In fact, one of the things about AI is you need to preserve the data you're using to power your agents, because that could be poisoned, that could be corrupted, and that's actually a way to attack your business as well. So you need to be able to detect those attacks on data, changes in data, look for anomalies, even malware. It could be lurking in the data. So you need to constantly scan for it and keep the data clean. So that is the next thing. So you need to be cyber resilient, you need to have a copy of the data that is clean. You should constantly look for anomalies. Then the next is you need to practice recovery, right? So now you have a copy of the data, there is a threat that could come in. You really need to practice what will happen if a cyber attack happens. How do you recover? How long does it take for you to find the clean copy? So one of the most common things that happen in a cyber attack is attack happens, you recover yesterday's data. Turns out yesterday's data already has malware. So you're again reinfected. How do you get to the clean state? How do you get to a copy of the data that is clean such that when you restore it, you're not going to get reinfected? There could be backdoors in your infrastructure that could be opened if you restore data with those backdoors. And so you need to practice that, which means you need to create a separate environment where you can recover the data, scan it for malware, scan it for threats, validate that the applications come up, and then you know how long it takes to recover. If you find any problems, you go fix it. So this is an essential step. You can't do anything that you don't practice, right? Anything that you don't practice, you can't do it well when you're called in to do something. So that requires a whole set of automation. So you need to be able to automatically restore the data, automatically clean the data, automatically validate that the data is correct and it's restorable. So tons of automation is required. And last but definitely not least, you need to make sure you know where the sensitive data lies. That is, you need to understand whether you have PII data, maybe customer information, is it in the wrong location? You know, you need to understand what the data estate. You need to understand who can access that data, who can, for example, is there a copy of data with PII that could be accessed by a lot of people? And people would have forgotten it. Maybe the permissions were set wrong. Why is it important? Because when a cyber attack happens, another way that they could really threaten you is to steal the data, right? Steal the data and regulatory fines. If you lose PII customer information, you'll need to pay hefty regulatory fines. So an essential component of having a cyber resilient architecture is to understand your data, where it lies, to classify it, make sure you know the PII regulated data like Aadhaar card numbers, and those things are always safeguarded and you know where they are. So the last component is you need to have a data classification technology that knows where the data is, whether the data is in a risky posture or not. And once you find something that is in a wrong place, you should be able to restore it. So these are all the essential components of a cyber resilient architecture. So you have your data that is running in applications, you have a copy of the data, a digital twin that cannot be deleted, you have multiple, you can go back in time if you need to, you detect for malware and make sure the data is clean, you know how to restore it with automation, you also know where sensitive data lies. And this system actually is deployed. In fact, many of you might be deploying in the back end, depending on your IT teams that are deploying such architecture. In Cohesity, we develop such platforms. And this is what we call cyber resilient architecture for data. So you can recover the data in face of a cyber attack or a disaster, and you can do it quickly. Now, let's talk about AI innovation and what does it require to do AI-ready data, right? So AI-ready data is all about making sure you have the right data for your AI applications. And one thing that we hear from customers all the time, and you should probably comment about that, is data is located in lots of different places. Suppose you want to do a customer service, say an agent. The customer service agent requires data from your procedures and manuals, from past transcripts that have been good. It needs information about the customer. So there is data that it accesses across the board. It's in multiple locations and multiple applications. Specifically, when you're developing Gen AI applications and agents, you're talking about unstructured data. So you could be using a data lake to power data for your agents. But the data lake may not have all your contract documents, or it may not have all the user documentation that you need for customers. And because a lot of that data is unstructured and is probably not available in your data lake. Plus, if you look at S3, many of your companies may be using S3 or an object store or NAS for storing a bunch of data. Do you have full visibility into what is out there? And whether you can actually take the data and actually use it as is? Does it clean of PII? Does it actually have information that you should not be exposing it to your agents? So it's difficult to govern all the data, so bring it all together. And so in order to make the data AI ready, we have come up with a set of 4 requirements, right? First of all, you need to have all data accessible and fresh, right? So you need to have the fresh set of data that you can use for your agentic applications. And that needs to be updated. And in fact, many of you may actually be taking the data and copying and dumping into a special data lake that you create for your agents, and then you take it from there. The second thing, actually an important thing, I don't know if everyone is taking care of it, is ensure data is auditable. So suppose your agent is giving an answer that it should not give. Can you trace it back into the data and what caused it, right? Suppose you have a RAG application that is giving you an answer. But if you're just going directly against the primary data, the data is already changing. Can you go back and audit and say, okay, this application was developed on this particular copy of the data. This is the data that should not have been there. you can go back and check it. So you got to make sure the data is auditable for you to really rely on being able to rely and correct and keep the application course corrected. Third is you don't want your agents to be leaking the information, right? So you don't want it to be leaking personally identifiable information to the wrong places. Like you can train it with your previous chat transcripts, but it should not go reveal some other customer's personal information or say date of birth or a name and so on. So you got to make sure in the training data or the RAG data that you use, there are no sensitive data. There is no data that that can reveal or cause you a regulatory breach. And last but not least, sovereign deployments, right? Many of you, in the banking sector, you're very specific about making sure the data does not leave your control. There is sovereignty about being in India. Then some of you may be using cloud as much, some of you may not be using cloud as much. So you need to have a way to deploy all of this, irrespective of cloud infrastructure, or should be completely contained in India. So if you look at all these AI-ready data requirements, there are multiple questions, right? So can you keep all your data accessible and refresh? Like, do you need a separate unstructured data lake? How do you keep the data auditable? What tools are needed to detect sensitive data and eliminate them from your training data? And how do you really deliver compliance, according to what regulations need? So it turns out, this is the picture we came out from the cyber resilience infrastructure. And the cyber resilient infrastructure can actually solve the similar problems that what you need for AI, right? First, so all data is refreshed and clean. So you already have, if you're building a cyber resilient infrastructure, you're maintaining a digital twin, a copy of all the data, and that is accessible immediately. So that's constantly you keep it refreshed all the time. And you can use the same data for training your AI applications too. Ensure data is auditable. So in your cyber resilience architecture, you would need to keep snapshots of the data across time. So as long as you're training on these snapshots, your data is auditable. You can go back and check what happened and what is the cause of a specific behavior, and you'll be able to trace that, and you'll be able to very quickly identify what's wrong. 3, of course, you want to be able to detect and remove sensitive data from your agent development. You don't want to be using PII in your RAG system to maybe leak some of those personally identifiable information. And so if you build a cyber resilient architecture, all these 3 actually come built in. And last but not least, sovereign deployments. As long as your cyber resilience tool can be deployed wherever you want, on premises or in the cloud, with the right set of controls, the same cyber resilient infrastructure can actually power your AI data lake, right? So that's the concept I want to bring in. And typically in your company, the cyber resilience is implemented by a separate team in IT, and there's a separate team actually building your data infrastructure. There is an opportunity to bring it together. In fact, we've been hearing a lot of interest from customers because the data is already being gathered. It's already in one place, already being classified. So bringing this together, at Cohesity, we developed an AI architecture. So the AI architecture starts with a cyber resilient architecture. And the cyber resilient architecture, we call it the AI data lake. So this is a copy of the data that's in time series, it's sensitive data, classified, all of them together. And on top of that, then we can build either our own application. In fact, we built our own application that provides search, a conversational chat, and also provides an agentic framework. So the stack includes the data and includes the application altogether. And this application can be connected to various ways of leveraging it. You can connect to Google, you can connect to Salesforce, you can connect to even Glean and other applications for consumption, or Slack, you can consume it from there. It includes a chatbot as well, right? Or if you're building your own agents, the data source for the agent, especially the unstructured data, right? So in your data lake, you already have probably databases. Tirthankar is going to talk about Oracle and various things. But if you have like petabytes of unstructured data that you really want to connect to your agents to using RAG, the AI data lake is available through this infrastructure. So this is the architecture that we have come up with, and we found some very interesting, I'll talk about one customer use case in the next few minutes. But let me actually walk you through a few screenshots to show how the tool actually looks like, right? So this is our AI architecture, and we call this application Gaia. And this is a conversational chatbot. You can ask questions of it. You can find the right set of data. The good thing is you don't have to do anything for connecting all the data. It already runs on Cohesity's data infrastructure. And Cohesity's data infrastructure is the most popular one in BFSI. In fact, in the US, all the big banks use our infrastructure to store all the data. Even in India, we have many larger banks, are our customers. And so this data is already being collected. It's a question of unlocking and opening this data so you can use it for AI. So adding a data set to this, you can query it on data sets. Adding a data set is super easy. You can actually go see here are the set of data sets that have already been created for the chatbot to work on. Could be same thing enabled to your agentic application too. If you want to add a new data set, you add a new data set and you say, okay, select your data set. You can actually browse from the whole host of things that are already being collected for cyber resilience. It could be your SharePoint. It could be your on-premises NAS devices. It could be your virtual machines and databases as well when you do structured data. In this case, it's Amazon in the cloud. You can select what you want to do this agentic framework to work on. And then you have a whole choice of working on a whole set of permissions. How frequently do you want it to be indexed to be updated, right? Continuously updated. It also automatically figures out PII. In this particular case, it was developed for the US compliance. The HIPAA and PII, US PII automatically gets detected and redacted. You can specify that. Plus, you can specify permissions. And the most important thing is, having this whole, copy a digital twin of your data. Who can see what? You can define your own permission rules, or you can go with the source permissions, what has already been configured in the system. And once you configure all of that, the data is already there. It's able to extract that, index that, create a vector database of it, and you can query it through MCP, or you can also query it through a chatbot. And in this particular case, of course, you can ask any questions. It's just like ChatGPT. You can ask any questions. But when you ask specific questions, in this case, what is somebody's tax ID number, and like our health beneficiary number, it's going to just redact that number. Right? It's not going to reveal it. Even if the data has it, if somebody finds out there's actually this data in there, it's not going to reveal that. And similarly, you can do more investigation. What happened with the specific case? Why is this submitted in the US? This ITIN instead of SSN, social security number, and it's going to give you the right explanation, but it will not reveal the personally identifiable number. So that is how, many of your infrastructure already includes, this most likely a cyber resilient infrastructure. You're already having backups. And if you have the right platform like Cohesity, you can actually unlock it and use it without having to copy all the data. You can unlock it for the agentic applications and implement secure AI, right? So this is how a single infrastructure that's already being used for cyber resilience could actually be a way for you to integrate data across all your applications and enable it for agentic deployment. And lastly, I want to leave it, we have a success story at a European customer, and this customer wanted this whole, is already using Cohesity data platform for cyber resilience, right? And they wanted to unlock, they have tons of internal meeting rules and regulations that they want to understand what happened in the past, why something happened in the past, and to make policy decisions and so on. But then they are a government customer, so they cannot really use any cloud. Of course, they want to be cyber resilient as well. So in one infrastructure, we were able to actually get all of this problem solved. We created a private GPT for them. It runs on premises GPU hardware, their own preferred vendor. We can plug in whatever LLM they need. And we created a secure, sovereign, unified access to data and roll it across their entire organization. And the thing is, the business value is fast deployment, because getting all the data together in one place making sure it's cleaned and replicated is actually an expensive affair. You need to actually create a data lake and be able to make it operational. But then because the cyber resilient infrastructure already has all the data, it's extremely easy to roll it out to production. It reduced cost. You don't have a separate infrastructure for data. And lastly, this can also enable future agentic applications. And so that's my presentation for today. And the takeaway is that you have to be cyber resilient. And that requires keeping a copy of the data and make sure you can recover. And the same infrastructure can be used for powering your agentic applications. And so that is my presentation. Hope you like it, and love to get your follow-ups from you. And in any case, that you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vasu. Once again, can we have a round of applause for Vasu for that wonderful session?
Thank you.
To give a token of appreciation to Vasu, I take this opportunity and welcome on the stage the Chief Economist, L&T Finance. Please put your hands together for Ms. Rajni Thakur. Guys, a round of applause. You guys can do better. Come on.
Really, very, very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rajni, for doing the honors. Thank you, Vasu, for that amazing session. It was worth
Thank
it.
you.
Worth it.